This is just going to be a 2-channel recording, and so we're starting with bass drum, and I'm using a Shure Beta 52A. This is very simple. Basically, you just got to put it basically near the bass drum. Now, the thing is that when you have a bass drum like this with a small hole, you get an awful lot of air coming out of that little hole, which concentrates it, and so you get a lot of extra bottom end. It isn't real bottom end. It's just a lot of air pushing against the diaphragm. And so what I try to do is actually put it inside. That way you get truer sound and not just a lot of waffly bottom that you have to filter out later. That's pretty straightforward. I mean, this bass drum has a blanket in there and it's got a little weight, and it's got some padding against the head so that it doesn't get too boomy. I picked a large condenser, old Neumann microphone. This is an M49. I mean, obviously you can use any decent condenser microphone or a ribbon even for this. This will be the overhead mic. So it's just 2 mics, just the bass drum and the overhead. And I'm placing this kind of centered over the toms and the snare drum. And the pickup pattern on this mic that we're using is set to cardioid, which means basically it's rejecting everything bouncing off the ceiling. And it's just sort of focused on the drums themselves. But this should pretty much get it. I mean, once he starts playing, I might adjust it a little bit. We're gonna see what it sounds like. Gain settings are simple, especially nowadays with digital. It's really easy. Get the drummer to play as loud as he's gonna play. And you set it so it doesn't go into the red, so it doesn't go over. I mean, leave a couple, 2, 3, 4 dB up at the top of headroom, so that if he really does lay into it during the take, it doesn't go into distortion. I mean, if every now and then a peak goes into the red, it's not gonna really hurt anything.
I don't think it's necessary to play your drums really hard to get a energetic, big sound. If anything, it's probably the reverse. The lighter you play, the more you're gonna get a natural balance of the kit, and you'll be able to crank it in the mix or compress it and actually use it. You might wanna play the cymbals less and play the drums harder, like play the actual kicks and snare and toms a little harder so those come out more. Another important thing is when you're recording, to hear what you're doing, like get the sound of the drums so you can actually hear how you're affecting the mics. That's really important. If you just get some heads that aren't destroyed, that helps. Get some newer heads. And for this particular kind of sound, you're definitely going to want to get some gaffer's tape and experiment with just really taping these things up and kind of detuning them so the top heads and the bottom heads are generally around the same pitch. That's kind of what I go for.
I would spend a lot of times, I would come in at night after sessions, and when nobody was in the studio, and I'd sit there and tune the drums for hours and just try all kinds of different things just to see. And I'm not even a drummer. I mean, I can't play drums to save my life. But I would sit there and I would mess around with it till, oh, well, that's starting to sound good. Oh, that sounds really bad.
And obviously, it's an acoustic instrument, so you're at the mercy of the acoustics in the room. So try playing in different spaces. Dead rooms actually are pretty great for drums. For this particular type of setup, it's probably a really great thing to have. If you're just in your bedroom, this will probably sound great.
Look up one of these Beatle books, like Recording the Beatles, or just some recording books from the 60s. I mean, there's a ton of them out there. You'll see the drums, there's usually one microphone just over the middle of the drums. I have a picture of an Elvis Presley session from the late 50s. And it was in a big, beautiful recording studio, but they had one ribbon mic. It was a RCA 77, I believe. It was directly over the drums, and you couldn't really see but I'm sure they had another mic in front of the bass drum, if that. And it's amazing. The sound of some of those records is just magnificent.